Okay, this is the January 2011 transport paper. The case study was about congestion in America and how congestion had reduced due to higher fuel prices and lower economic growth. But it was talking about as the economy picked up and fuel prices stabilised, congestion would get worse, and road pricing was the potential solution, but that it had been turned down in Manhattan, and the same applied to the UK, where it had been turned down in Manchester and Edinburgh. There was a little bit of a table which looked at the changes between 2008-2009 in the UK on road travel, which is copied at the top here. First question said compare the changes in car traffic and heavy goods vehicle traffic for 2 marks. So 2 comparisons. One comparison, overall car traffic has reduced less significantly than heavy goods traffic. So car is less than the heavy goods down here. So we've got one point there. The biggest difference between the percentage falls was on A roads, with car traffic on urban roads falling by 1%, and heavy goods vehicles traffic falling by 14%, with heavy goods vehicle traffic falling 13%, which is kind of highlighting the largest difference between the two. So clearly we've got both marks for that one there. The second question was state and explain 2 possible factors which may account for the change in road traffic. So we've essentially got a fall in demand, rising fuel prices, we've got a point here, may account for the fall in road traffic, as the rise in fuel prices will lead to a fall in the utility for driving cars, and means less consumers can afford to drive, leading to a fall in demand for cars. Less people driving cars, reducing traffic, and there are less cars on the road, reducing traffic. Explained here. Another reason road traffic may have fallen is the slumping economy. This is because economic slumps, the unemployment is likely to rise and incomes are likely to fall. This is the key part, which is our point. Incomes falling, and as they are normal goods, and there's our application there as well. So there's our 4 marks across that question. The next question was explain why road space in the UK is termed a quasi-public good. So quasi-public good, we need the definition first. Quasi-public good is the features of non-excludability and non-rivalry except in peak times. So we're highlighting that there is a loss of non-rivalry or non-excludability. I think that's benefit of the doubt, because it could be clear and just say that it loses the feature of non-contestability, non-excludability or non-rivalry at peak times. Road space can be seen to be a quasi-public good because it is non-excludable. Nobody can be stopped from using the road, and non-rivalrous. Okay, this part here we're explaining why it is a public good. So we need to explain, so we've got the space can be seen as a public good because it is non-excludable, nobody can be stopped from using the road, and non-rivalrous as one person uses the road does not reduce utility for other road users. So we've got an application for the public good part. At peak times when congestion means that person uses the road, it adds on to the journey, reducing the utility, making it rivalrous. So the utility diminishes and there'll be no space left, making it excludable. So again, we've got all 4 marks for that question. We've got the application, we've got the definition, then we've got the application of the public good part of it, and then we've got the application of the quasi part of it for the other 2 marks. Why is road congestion seen as a negative externality? So 2 marks. We need something about a definition of an externality within this, and then applying congestion to that. So road congestion can be seen as a negative externality because the marginal social costs, such as the environmental damage caused by pollution, we've got to be careful here because these are external costs. It may be that we need these we need this part looked at in a different way. So we've got the marginal social cost is greater than the marginal private cost. So there's our definition, such as the fuel costs. So we've got an application there, meaning that the social costs are not paid for by the people using the roads. It's not the social costs that's not paid for, it's the external costs. So that the people who pay for the road pay the private cost. It's the external cost that is the part that isn't paid, and both of those added together are the social cost. So this one here should be external cost, and then it's this part here that gives the application. So road congestion can be seen as a negative externality because the marginal social cost is greater than the marginal private cost, such as fuel, meaning that they are external costs not paid for, such as, and then the environmental damage at the top there. I think that would get 1 out of 2 in terms of what the negative externalities are within that. So the fact it says negative externality here, we need that referenced to these external costs here. The next question is a 5-mark comment question. Comment on the effectiveness of higher fuel prices as a means of reducing car use. So double-sided, reason why it is effective and reason why it's not. A rise in fuel prices will increase the price from P to P1 and shift MPC to the left from MPC to MPC plus price rise, resulting in the level of utility falling and the quantity of people driving falling from Q to Q1. So we've got a specific application here. We've got the link to the graph, moving the equilibrium to Q1 P1, moving closer to the social optimal level of car use. So we've got a reference to the social optimum there. However, the effectiveness of higher fuel prices reducing car use will depend upon the price elasticity of demand for cars. This is because, as seen in figure 2, if the demand for cars is price inelastic due to the level of utility being incredibly high and there being a lack of substitutes. So we've got a key application of why it's inelastic. We've got our inelastic point there. Price rise of fuel and the shift will only lead to an incredibly small, if any, fall in quantity. Got our other side, making the price rise less effective. So 5 out of 5 marks there, but probably more than 5 marks, but it's maximum 5 marks for that question. Next question, discuss whether a national road pricing system will be effective in solving the market failures arising from road congestion. Very similar to the question before. So this one is really about being very specific to the national road pricing system and really, really specific to the national part here. So straight away you can see that the graph has the ad valorem tax on it because it's got MPC plus T there, so that is a key mark there. We have the higher price, get into the social optimum, so we've got a mark there, and we've got the lower quantity. National road charges into ad valorem tax, which is determined by when, where and how much we use the roads. So we've got the specific EO2 there for this question. Driver driving at rush hour and busy times for a long period of time will be charged a lot more than a driver on empty roads for a short duration. Again, an extra bit of application there, show understanding the charging will shift MPC plus tax, increasing the price. So again, some EO3 here. Eliminating the shaded welfare loss that occurs before the tax, as the price and quantity are now the social optimum following, meaning the roads also optimally allocated. We need to be really specific to link this back to congestion and the market failures. So what we need is something around the opportunity cost of time in here to being linked to what this market failure is, or the opportunity cost of pollution and so on. So a reference to what resources here are being appropriately allocated, so really specific to this question. The question then goes on to say, however, national road charging may be seen to be less effective as the cost of setting up the charging scheme would be high and setting up the system would be a complicated and lengthy process, meaning there's an opportunity cost of time and money of road user charging that could be spent on other more efficient ways of reducing road congestion, such as the expansion of roads or subsidising buses. So there is an argument here against road user charging. The effectiveness of road pressure charging systems of solving the market failure from congestion would depend upon what level of tax is set up, because if it was not high enough, utility of using the roads will outweigh the cost, leading to the quantity. I think there is a better way of saying this in terms of elasticity linked to substitutes, and using the tax for subsidies of substitutes to make the market more efficient and increasing the elasticity. So an increase in supply of buses will increase the elasticity of demand, making the market more elastic. Or talking about the ability to estimate external costs to set the socially optimum quantity. I think those are the better two ways to evaluate this question. But again, I think this analysis of why it doesn't work needs to be more closely linked into congestion. So it may be that the pricing is wrong initially and there is still overuse of the road network. I think without the specific links to congestion, it's going to be limiting to about 5 out of 8. Analyse the main reasons why there's been an increased growth in the air travel in the last 10 years. So the increased growth is effectively reasons why demand has increased for the air market. Last 10 years, so from 2011, it was from about 2000 to 2011 when this exam was. That's the period of kind of EU deregulation. And you've also got the kind of entry of the low-cost airlines during that time. So air travel has significantly raised over the last 10 years due to a variety of factors. Change in taste and fashion can be seen to have an increase in air travel. This is because as the trends of holidays and trips abroad have increased, there's been an increase in demand for air travel, and as it's to drive demand, the demand not for the air itself but for the destination, then air travel access to it. So we've got a point and a little bit of analysis, but only at AO2 level. We'd need a graph or something to explain this in a bit more detail. Another factor would be that incomes have been increasing. This is due to the fact that the airline is a luxury good, meaning that rising incomes will lead to a responsive rise in the quantity demanded for air travel. This is because as incomes rise, consumers are both more able and willing to pay for expensive goods. So we've got some good steps in there from AO1 through to a couple of AO3s. Furthermore, the emergence of low-cost airlines such as EasyJet and Ryanair, got a little bit of application there, can be seen to have led to the rise in air travel as the low-cost no-frills airline have emerged. Air transport has been opened up for a new type of consumer, and this has been made a lot more accessible, and consumers now afford to travel whereas they would have been able before, and the increase in the supply of airlines. Okay. The increased supply is one of the key parts of this, but we could do this in a more accurate way to get more AO3 marks. So if we used deregulation as the starting point, and this reduces the cost of production, then this allows businesses to be more able to supply. And what we get is a shift right in the supply line. And then if we draw that as a graph, we can then talk about the increase in supply leads to a fall in price to P1, a rise in quantity, and a movement along the demand line to a new equilibrium. And it just gives us more EO3 to go alongside this application. It's quite descriptive, and it could do with more an economic analysis. This in turn has led to a larger quantity of air travel. Finally, advancement in technology could have also made it easier for consumers to access air travel, leading to the boom in air travel. With the boom in airline bookings and travel websites, consumers can buy airline tickets from the comfort of their own home without the hassle of having to go to travel agents, reducing the time needed to book travel and increasing the utility. Again, lower level analysis. So overall we've got roughly 9 or 10 out of 15, probably benefit of about 10. I think what we'd also need is, or what could benefit, is a graph to highlight one of the other factors analysed here, and as the better factor has been incomes, I would analyse that graph in relation to incomes, or increases in prices of substitutes such as rail travel, could be analysed on a kind of European level as well. Okay. Lastly, we've got discussed the impact of an increase in competition on firms in the airline market. This is a 20 question, so we're looking at the positives of more competition in terms of economic efficiency and the negatives of more competition in terms of economic efficiency. So we've got two graphs here. We can see the monopoly graph with the abnormal profits highlighted. We've got the monopolistic competition graph, so we're going to analyse a change between the two. Increased competition is when there is an increase in the number of firms competing in a market. Consumer demand and profits. An increase in competition can be caused by lower barriers to entry, such as the short-haul market, lower setup costs, good bit of application there, and being able to buy cheaper second-hand planes. The increase in competition and the number of firms moves the market into a monopolistically competitive market, as seen in figure 2. Average revenues falls to make it tangent with the average cost curve, so we're analysing the market. Firms still wish to maximise profit, so they produce where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, meaning that only normal profits are made. In the long run, as firms are all competing with other firms and market share, firms must cut costs to be able to make profits, meaning productive efficiency can be gained. Good AO3 market there, good AO3 example, as firms try to produce with lowest average cost. Furthermore, as firms need to be competitive, they'll invest in research and development to try to differentiate their products, and this increases dynamic efficiency. Due to the high quantity of firms all producing the same service, the variety of choice in terms of businesses offering air transport, increasing allocative efficiency. What we'd also look at is just to link that into a lower price and a greater total market quantity, not necessarily for the business, but across the market there should be lower price and high quantities. However, an increase in competition moves away from monopoly powers, which can result in inefficiencies in the market, as seen in figure 1. So we're referring to figure 1 here. There are fewer dominant firms, they can be price makers, leading to price and quantity being at profit maximising point, which is higher, leading to a higher abnormal profits. Little application of the abnormal profits of there, where average revenue minus average cost, shown in the shaded area on the graph. Higher competition, these abnormal profits would be lost, meaning firms, despite wanting to invest in research, are unable to spend the money to improve their products, and lower costs, meaning dynamic efficiency, is lost. Another way to say that is that the abnormal profits, other firms don't have any retained profits to invest. Also, though increased quantity from more firms can be seen to be beneficial, that there is there is a risk that overproduction will occur, meaning scarce resources are wasted, resulting in allocative inefficiency. Finally, more competition and more firms mean that the individual firms cannot reach the size that is required to achieve economies of scale, and then we're going to lose allocative efficiency. And all of those arguments against also gain here 4 marks for having a balanced evaluation. The impact of increased competition on the airline market depends upon what period of time is looked at. This is because in the short term, companies are able to differentiate their products, giving them monopoly power and allowing abnormal profits to be made, whereas in the long term, these differentiations are copy leading only to normal profits. So we've got an aspect of time as a wee step here, but there's 2 key things that we could add to improve this. One of them is that during the analysis, we could apply this more to markets. So we could talk about airlines in the short haul market going out of business, which is an example of potential overproduction in this market. We could talk about only the most profitable airlines being able to afford the newest planes. So a little bit of application throughout would add a mark or 2. We need another "it depends upon" here, and the key one that we could talk about is contestability, because we could say that if there are no barriers to entry or exit and the market is very contestable, then you get all of the efficiencies in a monopoly. So we could accept a monopoly if it was contestable, and we could explain how we might do that through either government intervention or just giving some examples of contestable markets, and that would help us to gain more evaluation marks there. As it is, we're roughly looking at 15 out of 20.